How is everybody doing today? Welcome back here today to episode 3 of the JustBallin podcast. Just want to start off with the episode saying thank you guys for all your support on the first 2 episodes. Or even like the second episode, at least on YouTube, topped what the first episode did. So means a lot. Thank you. We've eclipsed over 300 subscribers on YouTube, and people are following on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so you can kind of listen on your go. Either maybe it's your way to school, way to work, at the gym, wherever you kind of want to just get updated around the NBA. Also, a lot of people in the YouTube comments asked where this like kind of screen behind me that is showing like NBA scores and standings. It's called a tidbit. It's like TIDBYT. I got it as a birthday gift from a friend, and it's kind of amazing. It's kind of like an amazing like bookshelf desk like thing you can prop up. It's not like too expensive. I think it's like I want to say it's around $150, $200, which it is like, that is expensive. And that's like a great birthday gift as well. So maybe if you have a winter, spring, summer birthday coming up, you can get that. Graduation, I don't know. Or you can just buy it yourself if you kind of like it a lot. But I think it's pretty cool. And you can throw like the time, the weather, and a bunch of random things, and obviously other sports up there as well. So for today's episode, we're going to be doing, I guess, 2 different topics. I did just drop a new mock draft on the Sauce channel. I feel like we're going to see a lot of overlap between that content and this content, where I can kind of even like sit down, talk for another half an hour, explaining my thought process behind those things. And yeah, I've released a full first round mock where I can kind of go into these picks a little bit more. And if I like, you know, it's the video's already live out, and it's been kind of like 2-3 days since I've recorded it. Do I like those players as much? Do I maybe like those picks? Just kind of like sitting on it for a little bit. I think I can kind of dissect it there. And then we're going to be doing a mailbag at the end of this that I asked you guys on YouTube, on the community tab, any kind of questions you guys had that you wanted to be featured in here, and we'll kind of get into that. I'll just kind of handpick, and if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see if I answered your comment or not going forward there. So for the mock draft, I'm pretty excited to talk about it. So I did do a random lottery simulation on Fanspo. So basically, they just ran the lottery for themselves. So maybe a team that you think may get a first-round pick, like I know the Jazz first-round pick is top 10 protected. So if they end up in the top 10, they're going to keep it. If not, I believe it ends up in Toronto's hands, or that pick is all over the place because like Clippers involvement, the Rockets are involved, the Thunder are involved in it, and it's just like a swap horse at the end of the day, or a couple teams will get it. I think maybe OKC gets it. So we'll start off. Detroit ended up winning the lottery. If you're watching on YouTube too, you can also kind of follow along with a visualization there. I still have Alexander Sarr as my number 1 guy in this class. I could get the appeal of Zachary Resacher as like a complementary piece to a Jaden Ivey and a Cade Cunningham, because I think he's going to be a great shooter. He's going to be able to get his own shots. And I think like how well he could develop his spot-up shooting, his off-ball shooting is something to value. It definitely, especially defensive side of the ball, because they need people in Detroit to buy in defensively. And Resacher could be a great fit. So if you had Resacher number 1 in a mock, I'm cool with that to Detroit. But I like the idea of Alexander Sarr, because I think Sarr doesn't need to be zoned in as a center. He could play alongside Isaiah Stewart and or Jalen Duren as a 4 offensively. As a 5, he can guard your Rudy Gobert's of your world. He could try to go toe-to-toe with Victor Wembanyama. He could try to at least, probably not in his first year as he gets stronger and smarter and more adapting to the NBA style, could try to defend like an Embiid or Jokic with his physical presence. He's 7'1". He's a great shot blocker, and he's physical inside. And like I said, if he's able to put on weight once he's in that like NBA organizational strength training and conditioning, this guy could be one of the best big men in the league. I've seen a lot of Triple J comps. I think maybe offensively you could see that for sure. I think even maybe a little bit more skilled with the ball in his hands. We'll see how his inside scoring is and how consistent his outside jumper will be. But defensively, I think he could be one of the best like 10 rim protectors in the league at his peak. So I think he's a very safe prospect in a very volatile draft. So I would go Sarr with the number 1 pick, and that's who I have going to Detroit. Number 2, we have the Charlotte Hornets selecting Zachary Resacher. I think Resacher is working up to be a consensus top 3 pick right now. At least I know like Jonathan Givony, ESPN, they love him. He's been great as of late in Euro or playing over there in France for Borg. And he is going to be somebody that is, I think, going to be also a safe prospect, because I think his jumper is pretty easily like translatable from what he's doing right now over to the NBA level. I don't think he'll ever be a number 1 or a number 2, but for Charlotte, you kind of already have that. You think that it could be your 1 and 2 of LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, and Resacher is somebody that could play the 3, could play the 4, could even play some small ball 5 at his peak. He's 6'10". I don't think he's going to be strong enough or have like maybe the hand-eye defensively coordination to be like your rim protector. And yeah, we'll see if he's ever going to be strong enough, but I think offensively he could be your center at the 5 spot, and then can offer you so much versatility with your offensive sets in the half court. I kind of hope Steve Clifford isn't back. I kind of hope we get like a new modern day offensive minded head coach going over there in Charlotte. So I think Reese Share, that would be super fun. And then you plug and play him with I guess Mark Williams at the 5, him at the 4, and then you Brandon Miller at the 3. You have LaMelo at the 1. That's kind of fun. That is fun, and definitely is going to be a more exciting future for the Charlotte Hornets as they kind of blew it up at the deadline. And I think that would be a great pick for them, especially if they land a top 2 pick, because I think they could also be an Alex Sarr team. I would like him there. So number 3, a pick that I'm probably not liking as much that I made. I did Cody Williams to the Atlanta Hawks. Now, Cody Williams is still my number 1 collegiate player, but it's not really trending towards that way right now. I mean, he had an abysmal game against Arizona where he just got played out completely. It's weird. He bobbles the ball a lot and doesn't have a firm grip on just the basketball at times, especially when he's driving to the rim. And that's going to catch up to him with a lot more skilled, I guess, off-ball defenders that are trying to reach and grab at him. And it was prevalent in that Zona game, and that's a good Zona team as well. Cody Williams, I'm a little scared. I think he's still going to be an efficient shooter. He was okay in high school, not great. His jumper is really good right now, but it's going to come back down to earth. I'm a little nervous about him. I got to watch kind of more stuff about him. Obviously, Colorado hasn't been a great team overall this year. They've been solid times, kind of maybe inconsistent, but I still think I like him adjacent to Trae Young and DeJounte Murray and Jalen Johnson in Atlanta. I like that fit. Maybe that's a little rich at 3, though. So coming in at number 4, we have Jacoby Walter. I'm a little bit lower on Walter than the consensus. I think I have him probably in the 8 to 10 range. Walter probably right now I think is in the 4 to 6 range for most people. Something about his offensive, I guess, feel for the game, I don't love. It seems kind of wonky at times watching him at Baylor, but to give him credit, he is the number 1 option there too, maybe number 2 option. So he's definitely, and Baylor's a good team, so he's able to kind of lead this team to be successful, and that could translate to him being a winning NBA player. So I got to watch more Walter film, see if it's kind of maybe just a bias in myself. Maybe I just don't like the way he plays, and that's me downgrading him in my big board, and I have to realize that, hey Matt, you know what, he's better than you think he is. Feel free to admit that and change it so you don't look like a fool after the draft. So Jacoby Walter forward to the Rockets. I'm very intrigued on what Jalen Green's future is. Will he get extended this offseason, or will it be kind of a Tyrese Maxey type of thing where he's going to end up being playing in his 4th year with no contract extension, and then the Rockets can reevaluate it at the end of the 2025 season. But I think Walter would be a good addition. There are some point guards on the board here, but I think Amen Thompson is their franchise guy there, or at least future point guard. So I do have a point guard going at number 5. It's Nikola Topic to the Washington Wizards. 1 pick ahead of the San Antonio Spurs, who I think would have loved to take Nikola Topic here to pair him up with Victor Wembanyama. So yeah, I'm going to basically have the Wizards get Topic. Tyus Jones is probably gone in the offseason. I don't really know why they didn't trade him unless they think they can extend him, but I feel like he's going to leave for greener pastures in the offseason. So I have them get Topic, who could set up Bilal Coulibaly. These guys are going to be extremely young, raw, and they can kind of have a lot of trial and errors together for the next 2 years, because Washington really isn't expected to do much till maybe the 2027 season. And he could also set up Denny Avdia as well. That's a nice foundation of Coulibaly, Avdia, who's been playing great as of late, for what it's worth. And then also Topic, that's fun. And then maybe the assets you get in a Kyle Kuzma deal. Obviously, they got a little bit of draft capital in the Gafford deal, but you are stuck with Jordan Poole, so I'm sorry, Wizards fans. So we got Robert Dillingham at 6 to the Spurs. I love Dillingham. I do. I worry about his ceiling, but his ceiling doesn't really matter in this draft because there's not a lot of guys with all-NBA caliber ceilings, and the Spurs already have a high ceiling going forward with Victor Wembanyama. So basically, they just need Dillingham to be efficient and set up Wemby and not be a complete liability on the defensive side of the ball, and that's what I think he can do. He's very active, high motor, energetic on the defensive side. He is 6'2". He does seem a little bit smaller, especially if he's going up against a 6'7" point guard like a Nikola Topic. Could come at a disadvantage. But I think Dillingham plays hard enough where he will be fine on that side of the floor. And he's also been incredibly efficient for Kentucky and on a loaded Kentucky roster as well. And I just love him just kind of in transition. And he would be very fun to watch with Victor Wembanyama. So we're going to hop over to Portland at number 7, who have them selecting Ron Holland. And this is a fun fit. I think Holland would be a consensus top 2, top 3 guy if he worked on his overall shot selection, his shot diet, and his efficiency. I mean, he's way too inconsistent from downtown. there's kind of some issues with the shot selection as well. Worry about maybe his, I guess, long mid-range game as well. There's some pull-up jumper feel. There's some floater feel that I can like, but he's a great inside scorer. Sometimes has tunnel vision. We'll see about his passing, but he's a great defender, and I think that's what Portland could use here. Obviously, you have Scoot at the 1, Simons at the 2, Sharp at the 3 next year. Holland could definitely learn a ton from Jeremy Grant, and I think would be a great pick for Portland there at 7. I think even like Washington or Houston could have looked at Holland there at 4 or 5 too, and maybe even Atlanta at 3. Maybe Holland does go ahead of Cody Williams. Maybe I have Cody Williams ahead of Holland, and I should change that. So we're gonna see. Holland has been playing a little bit better as of late for the Ignite. So Memphis is picking at 8. So kind of like Atlanta, Memphis is having a disappointing year. Theirs makes sense, though, with all the injuries they had. Atlanta has no reason to be this bad, but they got lucky in the lottery for the simulation that I did. So Memphis can kind of reload this offseason. They're going to have maybe a top 10 pick, and I have them selecting Reed Sheppard out of Kentucky. Analytics love him. He's a winning player. If you look at his BPM, I think according to KenPom, he's like one of the best collegiate players. Maybe it's not KenPom. It might be a different site, so I apologize. But he's been one of the best, like, impactful college players that are freshmen, like, in a minute. And he's, like, up there with, like, your Trae Young, Oklahomas of the world. I think I even saw, like, him, like, I forget who else it was in there. But I would have to find it, so I don't want to just kind of say something that's incorrect. But he is very efficient. He has a high basketball IQ, and he could be a great maybe 6-man for them next year. And you can probably even have some lineups with him and Ja out there at the same time. If they keep Bane and Smart, it might get a little redundant, but Sheppard seems like someone that can contribute right away, but still has a bright future as a freshman. Number 9, the San Antonio Spurs. So this pick would be via Toronto. Their pick is top 6 protected. So if it's 1 through 6, Toronto will get it from the Pirtle trade. But if they don't get it, or if it's not 1 through 6, and if it's 7 or later, it will go to San Antonio. So that's a big thing to keep an eye on, as Toronto is kind of looking to rebuild, and I'm sure they would love this pick. I know it's not a great draft to some people, but I think they would love to have the 6th overall pick or the 7th overall pick if it came down to that. So Tidjane Salaün from Cholet, I have going to San Antonio here. Another French player, somebody that has great size, can space the floor. He's a good shooter. I think he's high 30s right now, currently shooting. He's 6'10". He would be a fun fit next to 1B for sure. And I think he can also offer some versatility with that lineup and that rotation. And will he be able to develop? Are they scared of Lukas Šamanić from a couple years ago? Possibly. But I think Salaün would be a fun player. And I think he could be maybe similar to a Koulibaly coming in. Somebody that may take a little bit of time to develop. But San Antonio doesn't need to win next year. There's no clock ticking on 1B. So I like Salaün, and I like Rob Dillingham going to the Spurs there in the top 10. And then to wrap out the top 10, OKC is selecting here. I believe, I think the Portland pick is at 12 is from Golden State. I believe this is Houston's pick at 10 for OKC. Yeah, it is. Houston was picking at 4 via Brooklyn from the Harden trade. This is from the Chris Paul trade, and OKC is going to select Ryan Dunn. So they could go for some big man. They also have the 13th pick here, so we'll get to that in a little bit. And I think that's via Utah. Could be wrong, but either way, 10 via Houston. They're getting Ryan Dunn. This dude is a beast. He's a winning player. He would, I think, be such a good plug-and-play guy at the NBA level. I like him way more than I did as Matisse Thybulle as a prospect when he came out of Washington. Dunn has great athleticism. I think he's a little bit more skilled offensively than Thybulle as well. Dunn just really can't shoot the ball. If he works on that, he could be a very good player. I would say he's like a Josh Hart that's just a little bit worse of a shooter, and Josh Hart already isn't the greatest shooter in the world. But hey, I'm sure OKC, who's trying to win every single year for the next decade, as long as Shea's going to be on this team and the young core they have, I think Dunn is somebody, sophomore out of Virginia, come in, impact them right away. And it seems like they made a similar pick when they took Cason Wallace in the lottery last year. At number 11, I have Matas Buzelis from the G League Ignite. The dude has a nasty dunk the other night against Indiana. The Fort Wayne Mad Ants, I believe, is their G League team, basically the Pacers G League squad. But Buzelis goes to Chicago here at 11. He is from Illinois, so this would be kind of a cool story there. And they could go maybe a point guard route, but I think with the emergence of Kobe White, just as your lead guard, I mean, they may roll a White-Levine backcourt next year. Get Buzelis there, especially if DeRozan is gone and Patrick Williams could be gone. He's somebody that can give you a high upside at the 4. He's 6'10". You can play the 3 or the 4. I think a big thing about him will be his jumper. Will it be efficient enough to have him out there at certain times, because his defense isn't going to be great right away to justify his jumper not falling. Like, at least for Ron Holland and Ryan Dunn, like, their jumpers not falling is offsetted by how good of defenders they can be. But I'm a little bit worried about Buzelis' defense, but I think Chicago can take a chance on him at 11. At 12, I just think it's a value play here of like getting Stephon Castle going to Portland. So this pick is via Golden State, and I know they drafted Scoot Henderson last year, but I mean, like, they could opt for a big man here because Robert Williams could get traded. Is DeAndre Ayton in the future? I just think Stephon Castle is way too talented to just not go here. So maybe that's on my mock. Just kind of looking at this in hindsight, maybe I should have had Stephon Castle go to like San Antonio at 9. I could have dropped Salon down a spot. And maybe Ryan Dunn doesn't really go as high as 10. That could be higher than what some people have him at. And, or maybe like OKC opts for like a Donovan Clingan here, who I've the next pick to OKC. So Stephon Castle's good. He was injured. He's on a very good UConn team where he's not like a top 3 player on that squad, but he has the intangibles to being a good point guard, as he's still very young and has a great size and frame to be a good point guard. He's got good basketball IQ as well, which I love to see. Donovan Clingan, 13 to the Thunder, doesn't have a super high ceiling. They just need some big man help. He won a national championship with UConn last year, sophomore this year. So we got back-to-back UConn Huskies going, and I think Clingan could just come in, give the Thunder a decent 10 to 14 minutes a night. Good shot blocker. Not bad feet. I think he's quicker than like Zach Edey out there. And and he's 2 inches shorter than Zach Edey. So it does help there. And I think I would opt for Clingan just kind of as a bruiser, backup big to Chet Holmgren for a little bit. And then lastly, in the lottery, I need Misi, who's been on a tear as of late for Baylor, going to the Pelicans. He can maybe, I actually don't think he's going to space the floor at the NBA level. But you know what? He's somebody that could be a good rim protector, solid rebounder, and play adjacent to Zion Williamson in that front court. And he could develop to being maybe a shooter in the NBA. We'll see. I mean, he does look kind of skilled with the ball in his hands at times. So I have Misi going there to the Pelicans at 14 with Valanciunas being a free agent. I think this is a perfect spot for them to target a big man, and this pick is via the Lakers as well. The Pelicans do have another first-round pick. That's going to be at 21. So that is the lottery. You can see it kind of on your screen for YouTube. We'll get into the rest of the picks after I take a break real quick. But we have Alexander Sarr, 1 to Detroit. Zachary Reese-Hasher, 2 to Charlotte. Cody Williams, 3 to Atlanta. Jacoby Walter, 4 to Houston. Nikola Topic, 5 to Washington. We have Rob Dillingham, 6 to San Antonio. Ron Holland, 7 to Portland. Reed Shepard, 8 to Memphis. Tijon Salon, 9 to San Antonio. Ryan Dunn, 10 to OKC. Montas Buzelis, 11 to the Bulls. 12 is Stephon Castle. 13 So Stephon Castle going to Portland. 13 is Donovan Clingan to the Thunder. And 14, Yves Missi with the Pelicans. So, going to take a quick break, and then we'll get to the Orlando Magic at 15. All right, so let's start things off with the Orlando Magic at 15. I'm going to have them go Dalton Connect here out of Tennessee. This dude is a senior at Tennessee, technically a super senior, because he played 2 years at JUCO, 2 years at Northern Colorado, and then now is playing his super senior year at Tennessee. Obviously, COVID year helped a little bit there. So he's going to be older on draft night. I think he could be 23, but he's somebody that could be an impact scorer right away for the Magic and could provide them some kind of offense off the bench. They obviously have that in Cole Anthony from the guard position, and I'm trying to think, like, I guess Anthony Black is probably going to be slotted in to be their starting guard next year, point guard. But Connect can definitely give them some scoring off the bench for sure with Cole Anthony. And that could be very useful right away because, like, yeah, relying way too much on Joe Ingles this season, and they got to move on from that. So 16, stay in the state of Florida. I have Isaiah Collier. So kind of looking back on this mock, Collier I think is a little bit too low. I think he's definitely going to be a lottery pick. I'm trying to think where he could have gone. I think maybe if I had, I don't know, because I think I had maybe Buzelis a little bit low at 11. I feel like maybe Ryan Dunn doesn't go 10 in a mock. I think that I got, like, my judgment got a little bit better of that because I would take Ryan Dunn in the lottery, but I don't know if he'd be a lottery pick right now. So I do think Isaiah Collier would go higher. So maybe I would just swap Dunn and Collier. Sure. I don't know if Collier would go to OKC. So maybe it's like Buzelis goes to OKC, Collier goes to the Bulls at 11. Or and then Castle 12, Trailblazers, or you can flip-flop those. And then you have, I guess, Ryan Dunn go maybe 15 to the Magic, and then 16 is Dalton Connect, or vice versa there. So, yeah, I think looking back on that, but if the Heat got Collier, I think that would be a nice upside point guard off the bench. Something they could use, too, since they traded away Kyle Lowry, and Rozier isn't like a point guard. Knicks at 17, so the first of their 2 first-rounders. This one is via Dallas, so I'm having them select Khalil Ware. As much as I love Mitchell Robinson, the dude is always hurt. It's always inevitable that he's going to get injured. It's a shame. It's weird because he's not even like skinny anymore like he used to be when he entered the league. It's just kind of, some stuff is just freak accidents, which is a shame. But they, I think, need to draft some big man depth because Hardenstein's a free agent. You can't be rolling out Taj Gibson. And I like Jericho Sims. I don't mind him, but I think you got to get some help there. And why not draft a big man? They haven't really taken a first-round big man, I guess, since Obi Toppin in 2020. Just kind of trying to remember that. Yeah, I believe so. Because Sims was the second rounder. Quickly late first. Grimes late first. McBride early second. They traded out of the Kai Jones pick. They traded out of the Jalen or the Ousmane Dieng pick. Yeah, it's been a minute, I guess, since 2020, and Obi was like not really a true big. So they get Khalil Ware, who's having a solid year at Indiana. He transferred from Oregon to Indiana this past year, so he's a sophomore, and he could be a good shot blocker and space the floor a little bit. He's got a jumper to him. So we got the Raptors at 18, Kyle Filipowski. Going to Toronto also, I guess before I get into that, Knicks got screwed, man. Knicks got screwed against the Rockets. I want to be a little salty here as a Knicks fan, but I was watching that game on my phone before going to bed, and I got so excited when Brunson tied that game. And then Precious Achiuwa makes a great block on Jalen Green as he was trying to go for a reverse layup. The ball just kind of dribbles all the way out to almost half court. And then Aaron Holiday picks it up. I mean, Brunson got way too close for that. Like, he doesn't need to do that. I don't think Holiday was going to hit that even if Brunson wasn't contesting him, but they called a foul. I don't know. It was BS. All right, I'm just going to sound salty as a Knicks fan, which I probably am. We got Kyle Filipowski going to the Raptors at 18. I think they could look to draft some big men here. So this is their first rounder. They do have one later, which I believe is the one they got in the, it's from the Indiana Pacers. So they gave up, so that one would be from the Pacers? Yeah, I'm trying to just kind of remember where these picks are exactly. No, I think this one is the Pacers first rounder. The one later is the swap worst. That they got in that Pacers trade as well. But then I thought they sent that to Utah. See, that could have been a later pick. I don't know. They have another first rounder. And then they obviously didn't get their first one at number 6 or at number 9, because that went to the Spurs. So they get Kyle Filipowski. I think they need to draft some big men here. They need to draft some size. Boucher's probably not going to be on this team much longer. Jakob Poeltl is good, but they could definitely draft some backups because I don't think it's really worked out too much with Koloko. Thad Young is no longer there. And yeah, obviously Siakam isn't there either. 19 Hawks, they get Kevin McCullough, a senior from Kansas, can be somewhat of a 3-level scorer, maybe not as athletic at the rim, but somebody that could provide the Hawks some buckets. I have them taking 2 wings here. Looking back on, don't know if I love that as well. 6'8" Cody Williams at 3, 6'7" Kevin McCullough at 19. I mean, what's going on with AJ Griffin? Is he part of their future plans? Will Sadiq Bey be back next year? He's a restricted free agent. You assume Hunter's there to stay, but he's injured at times. Bogdan Bogdanovic is getting a little bit older, and obviously Jalen Johnson is there for the future. But I kind of like the idea of them getting Cody Williams and Kevin McCullough. Maybe Cody Williams is still just too high at 3. So at 20, I have the Suns selecting Zach Edey. They just picked up. Who did they just get in the buyout market? I believe it was Thad Young. But they definitely need some backup size. And with Yves Missi off the board, with Filipowski, Khalil Ware, Donovan Clingan, I do think Edey's probably the next best big that can help them next year. I like other guys after him, like Bobby Quitman, Tyler Smith, Isan. Or Isan. Idan Almansa, who I believe I called Isan in my mock draft video. Love that. Or even Oso Ighodaro. He could be an option there. Even Aaron Bradshaw. But none of those guys I think are going to be as NBA ready as Edey. I just think Edey has a much lower ceiling than those guys. I wouldn't take Edey in the top 20. But like I said in my YouTube video, I do think this is like a Matt Ishbia pick, a James Jones pick. And they do need some big man depth. So at least they'd be targeting a position of need with their pick. I don't think they need to take another wing that isn't really going to play too much for them. So I got Tyler Smith to the Pelicans at 21. This guy can space the floor, which I think could be very, very valuable for the Pelicans. And at 6'10", he could be your rim protector at the 5 eventually. I think he'd need to work on it a little bit. I don't think he can come in and be that good of a defender right away. But hey, you ended up with Missi at 14 and Smith at 21. Actually love that draft for the Pelicans. 22, I got the Sixers taking DJ Wagner from Kentucky. They took a Kentucky point guard in the 2020 draft. It worked out for them in Maxey. I think Wagner could provide to be a good defender and a good kind of off-the-bench scorer, secondary shot creator. Nothing too serious, but could provide them some sparks off the bench in their second unit because they did not get that from Jaden Springer whatsoever. We got the Bucks at 23, selecting Jared McCain. This dude is a great shooter at Duke. That's what he's going to basically be providing. Milwaukee could be a combo guard at times, and with Pat Connaughton just really not being great there. We'll see kind of the future of Marjon Beauchamp and Andre Jackson, but I think they could go for McCain. There's a chance, I think, like looking back, they could have gone for a big man just with Brook Lopez getting up there in age. Will Bobby Portis sign an extension with them eventually? They could look at maybe a bit like a center for the future. I got Bobby Klintman go to the Knicks at 24. The Knicks have a pretty deep roster, so I don't think they were like. I think Ware could get minutes if Hardenstein leaves and he's the backup to Mitch Robb. I don't think both these rookies they select are going to get minutes. I also would think the Knicks are probably going to trade down from this pick for multiple seconds and a future first and just keep doing that, or at least out of one of these picks. But I think that Klintman could be a nice project play. Doesn't need to really play next year, but definitely has the potential to be a stretch for at the NBA level, and that could be kind of valuable for the Knicks off the bench going forward. I do have Ethan Almanza going to the Cavs at 25. A great inside touch for real. He can actually be a very efficient scorer inside. He could be a backup to Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, and him pick and roll with maybe even it's Greg Porter Jr. off the second unit. But if he's working with Donovan Mitchell or Garland, I think he could be very effective. I think he could be a solid defender right away. And we saw some injuries with the Cavs with Mobley. So I think drafting some insurance there in that front court is what they should do. I have Oso Ighodaro going to the Thunder at 26 from Marquette, a senior. Could also give them some kind of size right away. I think they should draft some big men here in this draft with Poku most likely gone sooner than later. We'll see like what Kenrich Williams is going to be part of their future rotational plans. But I have them getting Donovan Clingan, Ryan Dunn, and Oso Ighodaro, guys that can contribute next year on the defensive side of the ball as plug-and-play guys. And Ighodaro, I think, is a pretty good defender and has a nice inside touch. I have the Minnesota Timberwolves selecting Trey Alexander from Creighton with the 27th pick. Good combo guard as well. Could be a nice spark plug offensive player for them. Depending on who their point guard is next year starting, I don't think Alexander could start right away. I think if they wanted a more starting caliber guard, they could look at Tyrese Proctor, who I've still going in this first round. But I think Alexander could be a nice offensive piece for them off the bench and definitely better than their Wendell Moore pick from a few years ago. Raptors at 28, getting another big man. So I had them taking Filipowski at 18. I had them selecting Aaron Bradshaw at 28. We just haven't seen a lot from Bradshaw this year because he didn't really start his full season so kind of recently. A couple weeks ago, maybe. Oh, actually, probably a month ago now. But Bradshaw could also be kind of your typical rim runner, alley-oop catcher, shot blocker, rim protector, but like not at an elite level. 29, I mentioned him a little bit ago, but Tyrese Proctor, 6'5" combo guard, good basketball IQ. I think going to be a good passer at the league, and I think could be a perfect floor general point guard for your second unit, and that's what Denver could be drafting him for. And then to finish off the mock, I got PJ Hall going to the Boston Celtics at 30. I think they would also be in the market for some big men too, and Hall can give them some nice offense in that second unit with Horford getting up there in age, with Kristaps' injury history, and yeah, I think they're going to move on from Tillman probably in the offseason as well. So if you were watching on YouTube, you can kind of see like the full mock, and yeah, we'll get into the mailbag, and I would love if you guys are on YouTube telling me in the comments what you guys think of the mock, what you agree with, what you disagree with. Do you like the pick for your team? Do you not? And then if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can kind of know what you think. There's that. You can kind of let me know what you think about over there, and maybe just by dropping a rating or review, I'd appreciate that a lot. So we could hop here into the mailbag. I don't have maybe too many questions, but we got 4 that we're going to answer, and they were the 4, I guess, quickest people to respond on the community post. So hey, shout out to you guys. You guys are going to get your answer or all your questions here. So the first one is going to be from Sam. He says, do you think the Kings should have made some sort of push for the finals this year? Seems like they are just running back a team that needs a jolt of scoring or defense in that Harrison Barnes spot. Totally agree. I do think that they should have made some type of move. I think it's been kind of well documented that they tried to get Pascal Siakam. They tried to, I guess, leverage Barnes and Herter and maybe like either Lyles or Mitchell and then maybe some draft capital to get Siakam, but Toronto really wasn't interested in taking on long-term salary. That's why they basically moved Schroeder at the deadline, and everybody coming back in that Siakam deal doesn't really have a high price tag going forward because they got that option on Bruce Brown. So I do think the Kings, but now we got to think about who they would go after, right? I mean, I'm sure looking back on it, they probably would have liked to go after OG Anunoby, but they don't want to give up Keegan Murray. So unless they're getting like an all-NBA caliber player to pair up a big 3 with Sabonis and Fox, I don't think they're moving Keegan Murray. They were not moving Keegan Murray for an expiring Siakam, and I don't think they would have done the same, nor should they have done that for an expiring Anunoby. So, like, kind of looking around the league, like, who could they have gone after? I mean, I think, like, it's tough. Like a little bit cheaper cost would probably have been DeAndre Hunter for the Hawks, but I don't know if they were ready to move him. DeRozan doesn't really help them out defensively because we're kind of looking for a forward that can maybe guard a top like an Anthony Edwards or Devin Booker in the Western Conference. Like for the Knicks, they got Anunoby, who they could put on Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum and have somebody that can guard those guys, or they can throw them on Damian Lillard. But we're trying to figure out maybe who they could have gone defensively. It's tough. I mean, you know who would have been a great fit for them in the offseason looking back on it? But Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks could have been great for this team. I think Marcus Smart would have been a nice addition as well at the deadline, and he wouldn't have cost too much, like definitely cheaper than what Anunoby went for. But even a low-cost move, like a Matisse Thybulle. Could they not throw in like 2 seconds in Davion Mitchell for Matisse Thybulle? I think that would have been nice as well to go after those guys. But I'm sure like Mikal Bridges would be a great fit on this team, but Brooklyn's not moving Mikal Bridges. So it's really trying to go after the guys that are actually on the block. And I think I think they should have made a move. I don't think this team wins a championship this year. Maybe they are a first-round exit team and they're like, all right, we're going to hit our ceiling with Sabonis and Fox. We need to trade the draft capital going forward. They have all their draft picks pretty much outside of this 2024 draft because the Hawks do have their first from the Herter trade. So they could look to do that, but I agree, Sam. I think they should have made some type of push move. I'm surprised they even try to get like some more big man depth. We got our next question from Whitetail. He says, do you think the Timberwolves are going to be like previous Grizzlies teams where they have a great regular season record but are quick exits from the playoffs, or do you think otherwise? So I think like the Grizzlies haven't had enough of a sample size to become that. I think we could talk about like those Atlanta Hawks teams with like Korver and Horford and Millsap and Teague, or those Raptors teams for so long before they traded for Kawhi when they was like DeRozan and Lowry were on the show. I mean, they ran into LeBron James. So I think for Minnesota, they have a number one. Anthony Edwards has top 10 player in the league potential, which is already step number one and what you need to have some sustainability in the playoffs. So I think they're good there. Gobert is getting older, but I still think he's going to give you deep play level play at least for 2 more seasons. I think the big question is, can Cat be the number 2? McDaniels has maybe not been as exciting this year now that he's making more money, but can Cat be that number 2 on a championship team? I think is a big question they're going to have to figure out sooner than later, because when you're later with his contract, you're not going to be able to get out of it. So I think they have to figure that out, but I think they're in better position than maybe Memphis has been in because I think Memphis is supporting cast of Ja, like Triple J. I mean, obviously an incredible defender, but you're not really seeing him step up. And I don't really think we got to see Bane when he's kind of broken out to really step up alongside John Morant. They were kind of injured last year against the Lakers, but they still maybe should have won that series. I mean, they were the 2 seed after all, but I think they're in better position. But I mean, them not hitting on the Wendell Moore pick kind of hurt a little bit. We'll see with their first rounder this year. Like, could they maybe get like a Jaime Jaquez type pick like the Heat just got and get that boost? And then I think the big question will be, can Cat be the number 2? Because you know Edwards can be the number 1, but can Cat be the number 2? We'll see. So thank you for the question. I appreciate it. Guamian Broski, sorry if I butchered that. He says, do you realistically think the Mavericks will ever win a chip with the Luka-Kyrie duo, or will they eventually have to move on and get another running mate for Luka? I think they can easily be the number 1 and 2. Obviously, I think Luka can be the number 1 on a championship team, and Kyrie, we've seen it before, can be a number 2. I actually think they can. It's about the supporting cast around them, because their defense, especially in that front court, has never been great with Luka. And obviously, it's been a short kind of sample size with Kyrie. But now they've added Derek Lively in the draft, which looks like a great pick, and they traded for Daniel Gafford. While I agree, maybe giving up first for Gafford and Washington's kind of seems like a lot, because now you don't really have much draft capital going forward. They're helping them. They are. Gafford and Lively is the best kind of, I guess, center duo that Luka has ever played with since he got drafted in 2018, and provide more defensively than Kristaps did for them. Now, Kristaps is a great defender now, but he was rehabbing from those injuries, and they kind of got the worst out of Kristaps at those times. And we no longer have to see maybe Max Kleba or Dwight Powell or Davis Bertans play some stretch 5. I don't know. It wasn't great at times. So I do think the supporting cast is good. I would have liked them if they got like a Finney Smith instead of a PJ Washington, but I think it's really on how the supporting cast will step up. I think Kyrie and Luka could be the 1 and 2s, but will Josh Green step up? Will Lively and Gafford be good in the playoffs? Will Washington be efficient? Will Derrick Jones Jr. be a solid complementary guy? I think those are the big questions for them, but I think they can. I think they can actually with them too as their top guys, but Kyrie's obviously getting older, so it's not a now or never thing, but they're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see what they do this year. I mean, like currently right now, they are the 8th seed. I do think I don't know. It'd be interesting. Like them in the play-in tournament against the Kings, I probably think that they beat the Kings. But who knows? If it was like a do or die game in the play-in against the Lakers and the Lakers are fully healthy, it's a little bit scary. I can't lie. So DOFDG, then a long kind of name that I can't pronounce with the last question. Which all-time records, such as points, assists, rebounds, steals, and blocks, could ever be broken? So I think for points, no, we're never going to see it. It's funny because KD's had like one of the best scoring careers ever, where he's been in the league for, I think it's been how many years now? It is 15 years, and he's had multiple years. Like he led the NBA in scoring 4 different times, and obviously he sat out for like a full year, but and has had injuries, but I mean, he's at what, 28,000 points. LeBron's at 39K. I don't think anyone's going to pass LeBron. It can help with today's offensive game, but that player's got to be so healthy like LeBron has. I think it's going to be for a long, long time before we see somebody break career points, obviously. And I don't know if that player's even in the NBA. I would think maybe Luka has a chance, because I think he can play for a while because he's not really the most athletic guy in the world, and he doesn't need to rely on it. He relies on kind of his basketball IQ and his craftiness to get where he wants on the floor. So maybe it is Luka, but I wouldn't say it's going to happen. Stockton is all-time in assists at 15,000. 15.8K. I don't even know if that's going to be hit either. Like Chris Paul's at 11.7K. LeBron's at 10K. Russ is at 9.4. Harden's at 7.4. To be honest, I don't think that that's going to be broken. I don't. Unless Halliburton goes on this crazy run, but he got kind of a late start where he needed to be putting up some insane numbers. And if Chris Paul isn't going to break it, which I don't think he will, I don't think Stockton's record is going to be broken, which is kind of insane. For just total rebounds, Wilt is at 23K. Bill Russell was at 21K. That is not going to get broken. No, there's no chance. Like Tim Duncan ended up with 15K. Kareem 17.4. I think Wilt has that record for a long, long time. Looking at steals, basically, it's John Stockton with 3.2K. I think that is breakable. It is. Chris Paul's at 2,500. LeBron's at 2,200. But once again, is that player in the NBA? And with quicker shots and like less, passing throughout the possessions, I think that's also going to be tough. Blocks is 3.8K for Hakeem. I think it's possible. It is, but I don't know. I think the one guy, if Gobert is going to get probably close to top 10, but not, he might not even crack. He might crack top 10. I think it's Wemby. I think Wemby's the guy for blocks that could be the guy because he's already having an insane season. But the thing with Wemby, will he stay healthy? Will he be as healthy as like Hakeem was for the first 10 years of his career? And then Hakeem had injuries later in his career. But that's going to be a big question about it. So thank you guys for asking those questions over on the community tab on YouTube. So if you just want to subscribe there, and you guys can maybe be featured in the next mailbag. Hope you guys did enjoy the mock draft content. If you're watching on YouTube, I would appreciate you if you drop a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already, and let me know in the comments what you think. And hey, if you didn't know that I'm on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, I would appreciate you following me over there. And if you guys are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, I appreciate it a ton. And I will catch you guys in the next episode. Peace.